Okay, we are going to get started here. So good morning, everybody. My name is Jake McSheffrey. I work for Project Solutions, and we are the DBE supportive services provider for North Dakota, South Dakota, and Nebraska. And one of the things that we really enjoy doing is putting on these live DBE trainings and really bringing in a lot of people from a lot of different types of functions that really occur in the construction world or in the DBE world, and just sharing some information that helps people really grow their business and grow their mindset. So a little bit about me before we get started. I've worked at this company for a couple years now, and really my main role is to help meet one-on-one with different businesses and help explain the DBE program, kind of how it works, the nuances of the program, specifically how firms can get the most out of their certification, what it truly means to be a DBE and how you can capitalize on that, and then really provide the business consulting training. So helping firms who may be really excellent at their craft or have been doing a certain skilled trade for so long, and they start a business, and there's a whole new set of skills and knowledge that comes with operating a business, and people don't just always have that. And when you're running a business, it's really tough to learn how to run the business while you're doing it. And so that's where we come in to kind of help bridge the gap of some of those lack of experience in terms of operating a business, whether it's from the operations standpoint or the financial perspective. So with that being said, this particular training is an incredibly powerful topic to go over. And it doesn't matter what stage of your business you're at. You should always have strategic planning at the forefront of your mind. So whether you're at the very beginning or you've been in business for a while, or you're even trying to figure out how you want to exit your business, what you want to do with it, sell it, do an ESOP, sell to your employees, maybe hand it off to family, whatever your strategy is, knowing how to approach that, the mindset that you need to approach that, and how to get the most out of it can really make a major impact on your business. So strategic planning in general involves defining a clear direction for your company and then outlining the steps that you need to actually achieve those goals and objectives. And the main elements that we're going to be talking about today is number one, knowing your company's current operational and financial position, really having an understanding of what has worked in the past and what hasn't worked, and using that knowledge to drive your future decisions. Number two is identifying key success factors, or KSFs. You may have heard of KPIs, and we are going to talk about those as well. But key success factors are really the overarching principles or characteristics that make your company, specifically your company, successful. Number three, we're going to look at actually developing goals and what goes into that process. Number four is using all of that previous information to develop the strategy of how you want your business, the direction you want your business to go towards. And then the last one, number five, we're going to talk about allocating resources, which is your finances, your personnel, your equipment, your time, all of these very limited resources. How do you allocate them so they align with your strategies and ultimately achieve what you're trying to accomplish? So let's start at actually defining what strategic planning is. Strategic planning is a systemic process used by businesses to define their direction and make decisions on allocating resources to pursue that direction. It involves setting long-term goals, determining the actions needed to achieve those goals, and then assessing how to allocate resources effectively. So pretty much the same thing I was just referring to. Now, the big thing about strategic planning, the best way to approach it is you always want to start at the end. You always want to ask yourself, where do I want to end up and what do I want that to look like? And that could be a year from now, 5 years from now, 20 years from now. But understanding what that end state looks like and really defining that, taking the time to look at what do our finances look like? What does our org chart look like? What does our daily operations look like? Really defining that. And for yourself as the owner too, what does my day-to-day look like? Am I doing things I like to do? Am I working 15-hour days? Am I pulling my hair out, or am I being challenged in a motivational way? So really trying to shape what you want out of your business and then working your way back and identifying the milestones and the key points that have to happen to achieve that overall strategy. So one thing we try to avoid or steer into a new direction for business owners is when they just have the mindset of, I want to achieve 500,000 in sales, or I want to double my sales by 2028 or something like that. Instead, you want to have the mindset of, I want a sustainable business model that has growth potential. And like I said, maybe challenges me in a motivational way. Something that is more strategy and strategic and not so necessarily quantifiable or quantifiable, such as a revenue or gross or profit number. So that's the approach and the mindset to have with strategic planning. Now, why is it important? So direction and focus is the first one. It helps small businesses set a clear path and prioritize efforts, ensuring that all team members are in line with the vision. Now, the reason this is really important, especially for small companies, is that you can get a lot more buy-in from your team if they are involved and understand the company's strategy and specifically their role in achieving that. So you want your team to understand that they are part of the strategy, part of the bigger picture, not just coming in and working their hours and then going home. Helping them get a part of that process gets a lot more buy-in. It incentivizes your team, and you want to be able to have them understand the growth direction and then share in the success when the company actually achieves it. Number two, resource optimization. So like I talked about, effectively allocating the different limited resources, such as your financial, technical, physical, and time resources. For a small business, it's worth foot stopping that all resources are limited. So you can't spend all your time and energy and resources on all different business development strategies at once because you won't be able to achieve anything. So you got to really optimize that by prioritizing what's going to have the most impact for your business. We're going to talk a little bit more about that coming up here. And lastly, competitive advantage. So this identifies unique opportunities and competitive advantages to help your business stand out in the marketplace. During this whole strategic planning process, you're going to be doing research and analysis of your industry, your customers, and your competition, and that can help better leverage your strengths and optimize your position in the marketplace. So something you may be kind of picking out from just these couple of slides is that a lot of time and energy needs to be put into strategic planning. That's a lot of overhead time. That's not something that you're putting time in that's going to necessarily yield dollars on the back end immediately. But you need to put the time into this because without having a strategy, without having that momentum or that driving force of growth for your company, you're going to be sitting at a disadvantage or hitting a ceiling very quickly. So it's important not to neglect this. You got to remember that when, above all else, you're the CEO of a company and your role is to focus on strategy and growth and trying to not get bogged down in the day-to-day operations as much as possible. And if you don't have a choice, if you're the only person at your company, you have to do that, then part of your strategy should be able to carve out more time so that you can focus on how do I give myself back more bandwidth so that I can focus on strategy or growth. Because if you're not doing it, nobody will. And that's what a company needs to be successful. So to kind of help emphasize that a little bit more, why is it important to focus on this after you've already put in a 40 to 50 hour work week, 60-hour work week? Why is it important to still try to find a little bit more time to focus on your strategic planning? We're going to go through these 5 things real quick here. So again, enhanced focus and direction and having clarity of vision. And that just strategic planning basically forces you to have a clear vision and direction for the business and helping to align all the efforts of the team members with the company's goal. So again, having everybody on the same page. And again, prioritization. So helping your business prioritize initiatives and tasks that are most important for achieving the long-term objectives, as well as avoiding distractions and inefficiencies. That's the biggest part about prioritization here. We're going to see everything's important, but when you're focused on everything, you're getting distracted and pulled away from the things that are the most important at the current time for your company. So being able to prioritize when 2 things sound like they're really important, saying this is what we're going to focus on, that's the strategy. That's what's so important. And that's what you're trying to figure out so that you can achieve those goals faster. So improved resource allocation. We talked about having an efficient use of resources, both with time and money. And specifically with money, we talk about budgeting. So part of having the strategy is being able to chart out realistic budgets and financial plans that are going to basically ensure that the funds are being directed to those high impact areas for your business growth. Better decision making. So informed choices. Having a good plan in place is basically going to establish a framework for making decisions based on the understanding of the business environment and strategic objectives. So every decision you make should be driving you towards your strategy or towards your goals. And that's going to really help when you're at a tough point where you're saying, do we put in for more bids? We're already really strapped for time as is. Or do we underbid or underquote this amount so we can win this job? We really want this job, but then we could go in the red. When you're really trying to balance risk and trying to balance that informed decision, it really helps knowing that you know your strategy and you can put that question up against, at the end of the day, does this push us in the direction of our strategy? Yes or no? If you don't even know what your strategy is, you don't have that advantage. If you do, that can be the single factor that could determine yay or nay on a specific decision. So you have a better decision because you know where you're trying to go. And that bleeds into the risk management. So helping to identify the potential risks and opportunities, which ultimately will let your business make proactive decisions rather than reactive. So if you find yourself in a position where you're always reacting to things, you're reacting to contracts coming down the line, you're reacting to vendor price changes, the economy is just constantly adjusting what you're doing to cater to the world you're living in, then that means you don't have a strong strategy in place. Because with that, you don't have to necessarily rebuild, you just have to be a little bit more flexible and adjust. Now, competitive advantage. So by marketing position, having the strategy that outdefines your market analysis, which is another training that we're putting on this week as well. That's going to help identify your unique selling points and differentiators, which can provide a competitive edge in the marketplace. Specifically for DBEs, when you're competing against non-DBEs, your DBE certification is your differentiator. That's your unique selling proposition. That's what makes you different. But when you're quoting against other DBEs all on the same project, having your DBE certification doesn't necessarily put you at a higher playing field when you're competing against other DBEs. And then the service that you offer, whatever it may not necessarily be unique if there's a lot of other DBEs that offer the same service. So trying to figure out that, well, I'm a certified DBE trucking company. If that's your differentiator, there's going to be a lot of competition for you who are also using that same differentiator. So it's really not a differentiator. So being able to really understand the market, knowing who your competition, your clients, your customers are, helps you find the cracks and helps you figure out, okay, well, this is something that's missing in the industry. Maybe that's my differentiator. I can attack this communication issue that I'm seeing, or that there's a lack of support for this function in local municipalities. So maybe I'm going to, instead of going for state projects, I'm going for more county level projects or something like that. So there's different ways you can have that, but without doing the strategy or the market analysis, you're not going to even know that those exist. And then talking about that, responsive approach to the environment, you'll get more adaptability out of that competitive advantage too. So essentially, you're going to be building resilience, and that's going to build the foundation for navigating all those changes by having a well-defined strategy that is adaptable. So, and long-term sustainability with future planning, encouraging your business to think long-term and plan for future growth rather than focusing solely on short-term gains. It's really easy to focus short-term in small business because that's your immediate focus. Where's my next project? Okay, I got the project. How do I complete this project? What's my paperwork? Okay, how do I balance my checkbook for the month? It's all very short-term, immediate response. We need to fix this right now. And that's normal. That's okay. You're going to experience that. Many of you are very well versed in that. But the whole point of strategic planning is to slowly transition your mindset and your business model away from that. And that's going to just make you a lot more organized, less chaotic environment, which is going to, breed more creativity and problem-solving solutions. So having the strategy and putting the time into it really helps build a sustainable future for how your company is going to operate. So I talked about how great it is, how great strategic planning is. Well, how do you actually do it? So this is the 5 steps that we're going to look at. The first step is the largest step, and it's going to seem like a lot of work, but it's really not. And you're going to realize that a lot of this first step you're already doing intuitively just by owning a business. And when you actually look at your financials and look at your information, a lot of this stuff is going to come jumping right off the page. So don't get too overwhelmed by step 1, because a lot of it is stuff that you're already in the process of doing, even if you don't know it. So what basically we're doing is analyzing our situation. And we're going to start by looking at what we accomplished over the past year and any challenges that we had overcome to help set the stage for future planning. So we're going to look at where we've been. What were our biggest wins and how did we accomplish them? And then conversely, what were our biggest challenges and how did we overcome them? So the biggest thing is not to stay focused on this too long and not to get emotional about it. So if you had a really poor performance the previous year, or you've had a bad couple of years, you don't want to get too emotional looking back saying, oh, we didn't win this contract, or we didn't hit our numbers here, or we had to let go of this person here. You're not trying to get emotional or bogged down. You're just collecting the facts. So don't linger in there. Don't get yourself all bent out of shape before you even got past the first slide of step one. You're just accumulating the facts, and then we're trying to capture that 2020 hindsight and apply it forward, putting more focus on where we're going. So the next part of this is to do a SWOT analysis. Many of you have already done a SWOT analysis or competitive SWOT analysis, and maybe some of you are rolling your eyes saying, this is basic 101. How is this going to help me? The thing about a SWOT analysis, and we're going to see a little bit of the same thing with our goal development too, is that these are cliche and overused for a reason. When they're done correctly, they're incredibly powerful. If you just kind of go through it and you're just checking the box, you're filling it in, they don't really provide you with a lot of information. It becomes one of those words that just falls deaf or in one ear out the other. So I'm going to try to challenge you here to look at a SWOT analysis in a different light. And if you've never heard of this, it's basically a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis of your company. And you can also do these for other companies as well. And when you're doing a market analysis, it's a good idea to do this for your competition. But let's talk a little bit about strengths. So strengths are your internal attributes that are helpful to achieving your company's objectives. So these can be your unique selling propositions, maybe that you have a specifically skilled team or a strong brand, loyal customer base, just things that are unique to you. Weaknesses are the opposite. So these are internal attributes that are harmful to achieving your objectives. So limited resources, gaps in expertise, maybe inefficient processes. Opportunities are external threats that businesses could exploit to its advantage. So these could be emerging market trends, any technological advancements, maybe changes in consumer preferences or how your clients purchase your services. And then lastly, threats, external factors that could cause trouble for your business. Economic downturns, geopolitical climate, new competitors, regulatory changes, things that you don't have any control over, but they still impact your business. So when you're doing these, what I challenge you to do is a deep dive into what you're listing. So for example, if a strength you list is that you're a good communicator. Okay, how does that apply to the strategy of your business? How can you use your good communication skills to apply to your business? And what are you saying when you say you're a good communicator or you have strong interpersonal skills? What are you actually saying? Are you saying that you're a good salesperson and you can sell your company to a client? Or are you an empathetic person who's really good at connecting with other humans and really good at sharing their emotions, but that may make it difficult for you to sell something to them? So maybe your good communicator strength is actually not a strength for the company. So you really need to dig deep. When you just put a strength down, I would put another few bullets. Why is that a strength? And how does this tie into my strategy? Otherwise, just saying that you have all these strengths and weaknesses, they're not really tying in directly. We're actually trying to get usable material out of a SWOT analysis, not just a fancy diagram in a business plan somewhere. So really dive deep into these. If something's an opportunity, how can you use your strengths to turn that opportunity into an actual occurrence? Or how can you, use your knowledge of your weakness to circumvent or mitigate any types of threats? All of these tie into each other, but having a really strong understanding of what you're saying and why you're saying it is going to be a huge benefit in terms of figuring out how to apply it to your strategy. So still on step one here, we're going to review our own internal business performance. So we break this up into financial performance, operational performance, and customer performance. You can see here we have some key metrics and analysis and action items for each one. So for financial performance, we're looking at revenue, profit margins, cash flow, and ROI. And then we're comparing that with historical data and industry benchmarks, and then identifying financial strengths and areas for improvement. So in all of your financial areas, your cash flow, your ROI, your costs, your expenses, you want to see how you're doing based on your previous years and capture that data. Same with your operational performance, looking at your efficiency, productivity, quality control, customer satisfaction, and evaluate operational processes and their effectiveness, and then find ways that you can streamline operations and enhance that productivity. And that can look like, that could be something in your accounting side of the house. That could be something in how you actually conduct your operations. It can be your estimating and bidding process. It can be in your paperwork, prompt payment processing. It's just figuring out where did we struggle and how can we make this process more streamlined. And then customer performance. So looking at your customer retention rates, satisfaction scores, and feedback. We always strongly suggest seeking feedback from your customers whenever you can, whenever you have a project. and use that as proprietary information to help retain that customer or use that to get more work with that customer in the future. The biggest thing is understanding customer needs, preferences, and pain points. And then you're going to improve your customer service and tailor offerings to meet customer demands. Now, that customer performance, that can really be ironed out in a market analysis. And again, that's our training on Thursday this week is market analysis. It's really doing such a deep dive into understanding the arena and the marketplace and the environment that you operate in to a point that you can find the best strategies and you can find the most lucrative ways to go. And just as importantly, know what's not going to work. But overall, for all of these internal business performance, financial, operational, customer, how do you actually evaluate these? So there's a few ways you can do this. You can look at internal records. So again, looking at your previous years, the more years you have, the better. If you don't have a lot of internal records, you can look at benchmark standards of similarly sized companies. So you can go online and you can look up what are the benchmarks, how do these companies in my local region, my municipality, my state, my area of the country, how do these businesses perform? How many of these businesses exist? How many of them go out of business? How many of them are over $500,000 in gross profit per year? Some of these stats you can actually find online, and it helps just paint the picture of where you're at in comparison. And then for finances specifically, because that's kind of the lifeblood of your business, is you can look at industry financial ratios. So ROI ratios, liquidity, profit. Basically, you're taking all of your numbers and you're just turning them into either a ratio or a percentage and comparing that to the industry standard. And that helps you identify, okay, we're below or we're above. If the industry standard is you're making 20% profit on a project and you're making 35%, or let's say you're charging 35% and you're not winning any projects, that's very telling. Okay, maybe our profit's too high. We need to adjust our formula of how we calculate everything. So getting that information, even if you don't have a lot of it, and using it to compare to the industry can be really helpful. Okay, so now we're looking at our internal capability. Before we're looking at our performance, now we're looking at what are we actually capable of. So what is our human resources, our HR functions? What do they look like? So we're going to evaluate our team skills, our experience and capacity. And then we're going to address any skill gaps and invest in training or hiring. So this is really looking at our most important asset is our people, right? What are their skills? Where do they need training? And what can we actually do? So the thing about HR is that we always like to say HR professionals, they can serve a lot of functions in the world. They can serve, payroll, safety, recruitment. They can help with company culture. They can help with business development. So usually small businesses aren't on the hunt to find an HR person. That's not, they're usually looking for a tax person, an estimator, laborers. But don't undersell how much a qualified HR professional can bring to the team. They have a lot of experience and a lot of skill sets, and they can run a lot of the business side functions. So you may not be thinking I need to hire an HR person, but it may be something you should consider or build into your strategy. And technology and infrastructure. So reviewing our current technology systems and infrastructure. This also means equipment. So whatever type of equipment you have, the maintenance that goes along with that, the upgrades or updates that goes along with that, and then upgrade or invest in new technologies to improve efficiency and capability. So specifically with technology and infrastructure, what systems, application programs are you using? So are you using any estimating and bidding software? Probably don't need to if you're a really small company. But do you have that kind of software, or are you using internal trackers such as Excel? How are you doing your books? Are you using QuickBooks? Are you using a different type of software? Are you doing it are you even managing your books, or is that all hired out through a third party? So looking at all the systems that you have in place and figuring out what are the costs and expenses of that. How does that relate to if we hired somebody in-house to do it? Is this something that can be learned easily? Is this something that's worth the expense to pay a third party for? Just being understanding of what those costs are and how you can improve them. And then processes and procedures. And most of the processes of your company is going to come from best practice. It's how you run your company based on your skills, your equipment, your approach, your business model. But you want to analyze the processes for efficiency and effectiveness, the ones that actually do exist, and then optimize processes to enhance operational performance. So how do you know if a process needs to be optimized, right? You look at all these processes, all these things that you have, and you say, well, yes, it takes a long time to do. read through a set of project plans. It takes me a long time to do it. Can we make it more effective? Is there training you can get to be more effective at reading plan trainings or project plans? Is there certain areas of the project plans that confuse you, such as like the estimate of quantities or how the project plans are actually laid out, the legend, the keys, all the symbols don't make any sense to you. You don't know how to take that estimate of quantities and perform a quantity takeoff to form your estimate. Where exactly are you struggling? That's going to be your first analysis, is figuring out where your pain points are, and then figuring out, is it an issue with the person doing the job, or is it an issue with the process or the way our business is actually conducting that role. Sometimes spelling out SOPs, standard operating procedures, or checklists can really help, especially when you bring on new people to help build that continuity within the team. Is that, hey, this is how we do this process. Step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. And that really helps streamline and optimizes things versus having everyone do it their own way. So you really got to look internally and a good hard look at your own company and processes and try to figure out where those pain points are. That's going to be the one part that doesn't necessarily jump off the page when you're doing the step 1 analysis. You have to really dig deep and figure out, this process, can it be better? It is what it is now, but can it be better? And if so, how do we make it better? And this is the last slide, I promise, the last slide of step 1. And it's analyzing your market position and industry analysis. And we've already touched upon this. This is the market analysis. So it's understanding your market position, your current position, assessing your market share, your competitive standing, brand recognition. So where do you fit in the current marketplace? If you don't even know where to start answering that question about where you fit in your market, then that shows that you aren't equipped to make very difficult decisions moving forward, because you don't even fully understand the competition or the game you're playing. So that's why market analysis is really important. You need to know where you stand and the reality of the situation. How many other companies are just like me doing the same thing, and what is my advantage to beat them out? This is something that we always encourage to do before starting a company, but it's also something that you can do at any point in your company. So if you don't know the answer to some of these questions, there's no better time to do a market analysis, and no better time to attend the training on Thursday, because we're going to actually talk about how you can do that. But if you can't attend that, then here's some other tips here. So identify your industry trends and their impact on your business. So your internals and your externals, know how those are going to affect you. And then you can adjust your positioning and strategies based on the market dynamics. So again, knowing how many competitors you have, who buys your service? Is it private? Is it government? Is it nonprofit organizations? How are you marketing your services? Who you're marketing them to? And then the last one is the industry analysis. So examining overall industry growth, key players, and market structure. As DBEs working a lot of construction type work, it's a great market to be in. We're always building. We're always creating more. There's not really a downturn in construction in terms of the work being available. Now, how it gets let and how it gets how expensive it can get, that could be going in a poor trajectory because everything's getting more expensive. But there's always going to be work for construction for the foreseeable future, and there's always going to be a need for human beings in that industry. Yes, there's AI. Yes, there's technology we can use, but in that type of work, you need human beings. So construction is a great industry to be in, but knowing what is happening in your area, what kind of buildup, is it roads, is it buildings, is it towns, is it nature preserves, what is being built and how do you factor into that, is what the industry overview is. And then the competitor analysis is analyzing your competitor strengths, weaknesses, and strategies. So just like I said, how important that SWOT analysis is to do internal, you want to do that for your competition as well. You want to see what their strengths are, because if they're doing their job right, they're going to capitalize on their strengths to outbid you and to make their business more competitive. So if you know what they can do, if you can see their move, it's almost like a game of chess. That's the strategy. If you can figure out this is their strategy, they're always winning this client, they're always winning this project, they're always getting reached out to by this prime. How do they keep doing this? Is it because they have that network? They already established that relationship? Is it because they offer a better price than me? Is it they have more resources, different types of equipment? What are they doing that's winning that project? And how can I either invade into that space or determine if I can't be competitive? Because that's a big part of this, is where can you be competitive and where can you not be? And that's the last thing, positioning your business effectively within the industry and addressing competitive pressure. So that's all step one. And like I said, most people say step one, I'm done. I'm not getting through that. But like I said, a lot of that stuff you already know. You don't, it's not weeks and weeks of pouring through documents. It's just looking at where you're at, what your capabilities are, where you've been, what you currently have, identifying what you're good at, what you're not good at, and getting a really good pulse of your company in general. That's what you need to do. Before you can make a strategy of where you're going, you need to know where you are. So that's the first step. Now, step two, after you've done all that, is to identify the key success factors. And these are the core components that will improve your business. So there's industry specific and company specific. Industry specific key success factors are things that are crucial for success in your industry. So that could be having specific equipment. You know, if you're an excavation company, you have no excavating equipment, that's probably pretty important for your industry to have. Level of experience, you could have a requirement for certain licensures or certifications, or even education level, depending on what you're doing. And then company-specific key success factors, consider what factors are particularly important to your business's unique circumstances. So this could be if you're in a unique location, maybe a very rural location. What's your customer potential? How many people are actually purchasing your services in your area that you're willing to travel to? And then resource limitations. What resource limitations are you facing that you need to overcome in order to be successful? So understanding the industry level and your company. Once you kind of map those out a little bit, the next step is to assess and prioritize these success factors. So we do an internal analysis, which is basically evaluating your business's strengths and weaknesses again, to identify the factors that are most critical to your success. Again, market research, analyze your industry trends, competitor strategies, and customer feedback to determine which success factors are most relevant, and then prioritizing. So focusing on the key success factors that will have the greatest impact to your business. So then we align that to our overall strategy. And this is, again, why we start at the end and identify that strategy at the beginning, because now that we go backwards and we do step two, we already know where our strategy is. So we're going to integrate and develop action plans and ensure that our key success factors are actually integrated into the strategic goals and objectives. If our strategic goal is to be the #1 producer of this product, and our key success factors have nothing about being the #1 producer, producing the most product, getting the most clients, having the best price. They're all about developing our technology, IT tech software systems. Those aren't going to match. Those are obviously a mismatch, and we're not going to get to our strategy if our key success factor doesn't align with it. So making sure that everything is cohesive all the way through. And then establishing performance metrics and monitoring them. So making sure as we go through this, we're actually achieving the goals. And this can be done through, KPIs can be done through financial, customer, operational, and employee. Just depends on what you're tracking. And they can be a variety of different things. You can also look at the industry to see what KPIs are standardly tracked in each of those categories. But for the most part, you're trying to figure out what are the key performance indicators that are going to tell me that we're meeting our key success factors, which is telling me we are meeting our strategy. It all kind of builds up. So the last thing I want to say about this one is if you look on the first listed bullets there, the customer service excellence, product quality, cost management, innovation, effective marketing, all of these key success factors are important. So this is what I was talking about before, where it gets really difficult to figure out what's more important, product quality or cost management. What's more important? It's really hard to figure that out because they're both important. But when you're developing a strategy, you can't focus on all of it. You can't be the best at everything. So you need to figure out, based on your strategy, okay, this is what we're trying to achieve. We're trying to be the lowest cost producer in the market. Okay, so then our success factors really need to revolve around price. So maybe we need to focus more on vendor relationships to get better vendor deals. Or if we're a manufacturer, we need to focus on our manufacturing processes to produce this product for cheaper. You just want to, that's going to be more important than necessarily effective marketing, right? So you want to make sure that your key success factors are going to align with the strategy. And sometimes they're contradictory. So, for example, if you want to weigh volume of clients and profit management equally, they could contradict each other. So if you say, I want to make the most money, then do you make the most money by having the most clients and offering at a cheaper price? And then just by sheer volume, you make money, kind of like how Walmart does business? Or do you want to have lesser clients, but focus on higher costs, but to very specific clients so that you don't have to have as many projects, but you still make your profit. Those are two ways of obtaining a profit, but they're two different strategies and they require different goals and different efforts. So going by sheer volume of clients or going by marketed, very direct clients that will pay more money, different strategies. So that's why you really need to understand, what are you good at? What is most reasonable and feasible, and how do you attack it? The next step is goals. So the goals one is very similar to SWOT analysis. Everybody hears one ear out the other. SMART goals. Everyone's heard of SMART goals. Everyone's like, yeah, achieve your goal. Goals are great. Now they've kind of morphed into this big motivational things. You have personal goals, you have goals, financial goals, you have business goals, and it just kind of ends up falling flat. It doesn't really mean much. And then people just end up setting all these goals and it doesn't mean anything. One of the biggest things I want to emphasize is the difference between a goal and a commitment. So a goal has an end date. Once you achieve it, you've accomplished your goal. A commitment does not. So a goal of being, the highest quality producer of X product in the market. Well, sure, but that's more of a commitment. You're committed to that strategy of constantly becoming the highest producer, right? The goals are the steps it takes to reach that commitment. So you don't really want to set goals that are really commitments. A good example of that outside the business world is fitness. You set a fitness goal of saying, hey, I want to be healthy. That's my goal. My goal is to be healthy. That's not a goal. That's a commitment. The goals are, I'm going to work out 2 days a week. I'm going to run 1 day a week. Those are the goals. And the reason I like to make that distinction is because too often we see goals that are commitments, and you can't achieve a commitment. And so the whole goal thing is out the window. It doesn't mean anything. So goals are important, and you want to have short-term goals and long-term goals. So short-term goals obviously focus on the immediate or near future objectives, often achievable within a year. And then the long-term goals are these strategic objectives that span multiple years. So when we talk about strategic planning, we're talking about long-term goals. But again, we're not talking about commitments. We're talking about actual achievable long-term goals. And then we break that up into short-term goals to achieve them. It all climbs up this hierarchy. That being said, there should be a lot of thought that goes into developing a goal. So it should be important, and you should take the time to actually set apart what that looks like. What I like to always say is that when you think of sports games that have goals, so like hockey and soccer, you score a goal. Those games tend to be very low scoring games. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of coordination, a lot of skill, communication, and luck to just achieve one goal. And your business is the same. You're not going to be having 40, 50 point games in your business. You're going to be having 1, 2, maybe 3 goals achieved at a time. So that's why you really want to put more effort into that. You can see here on this slide, we have a chart, and this is something we share with all of our clients, and it helps break out how to achieve a goal. So at the very top there, you see the goal, an outcome you'd like to accomplish. That's the final product. Now we define the scope of objectives to achieve that goal, and we break it down to the strategy, objective, and tactical level. Don't get confused that the word strategy is in there, because every other time we say strategy, we're talking higher level above goal. Maybe we could use a different word here, but strategy is when we talk about strategy in the goal formula, it's not the higher level strategy. It's just the kind of the higher level of the approach you're going to take for the goal. So we break it down to the strategy, the objective, and the tactic. Now, to give you an example of what that actually looks like and to show you how much detail goes into goal development, let's look at an example of a short-term goal. Let's say we want to improve customer service response time by 50% in the next 3 months. That's something that you can do for a short-term goal. Long-term goal, we want to become the market leader in our region within the next 5 years. So you want to ensure that all these goals are consistent with your strategic direction and broken down. So an example. Let's say our goal is we want to increase total gross sales by 15% in 6 months. That's our goal. We want to increase sales by 15% within 6 months. We take it down to the strategy. How are we going to do that? What approach are we going to take to achieve this goal? Well, we have 2 approaches. Increase sales by developing our internet presence and develop more bids for government opportunities. So we're going to submit more. We want to put out more bids, and we want to increase our internet presence. Those are our strategies. Okay, we take it down to the next level, the objective. How are you going to increase your internet presence? Well, we're going to develop a website, and we're going to be more active with social media marketing. Okay, great. How are we going to get more bid opportunities? We're going to improve our bidding and estimating processes and submit more bids and actually track our hit rate and our quote log so that we can see what we're doing. Fantastic. Now we break that down even further. Tactic. What's the measurable action that you're going to use to pursue an objective associated with a strategy? And this usually comes associated with a cost and a timeline that it will take. So it's very specific. So for the internet presence, our tactic is we're going to register for a website creation site. So we're going to look at something like GoDaddy, WordPress, maybe look into a website designer. We're going to set a timeline when that specific task is going to be done and a cost. How much is it going to cost us to have a website? How much is it going to cost us to have a web designer? How often are we going to post to social media? What are we going to post? We want to develop a homepage by 3 weeks from now. So you really break it down to very minute tasks with time. And then the other side, when you're talking about the bids and proposals, one of the tactics for that, well, we're going to review procurement portals twice a week. These specific portals, we're going to look at them twice a week, and we're going to make note of all the different opportunities that are available. And we are going to submit maybe no less than 5 bids per month. So by breaking that down, you can see you took one goal and you broke it all the way down to talking about when you are going to find a website designer and which links are you going to click on to find bidding opportunities. You take that goal of increased gross sales by 15%, and we broke it down to the bottom level. That's how you should approach your goals. It may seem arduous and it may seem like it takes a lot of time, but that's how you get real obtainable goals. And it's also how you weed out goals that you realize aren't important. Because once you start diving deep into this and you're like, this is just so, what it's going to take to achieve this is so much work that it's just not jiving with our strategy. That's not the goal we want to achieve. So this process, this very meticulous process, helps you actually really narrow down and focus your efforts because you're forcing yourself to use your time to figure out what's important. SMART goals, I think I don't have to go through all of this. Everyone's probably heard of these. If you haven't, it's specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timely. And it's basically another tool that you can use to make sure that your goals are well defined. Using the chart that we just went over and really detailing each item down to the strategic, objective, and tactical level, that's going to help ensure that your goals are all SMART. Okay, so step 4. Now we're developing the strategy. So what we're going to do first is understand what our competitive strategy is. So now we're going high level. Okay, what is our strategy to become more competitive? We want to build a strategy that better positions our company. These are 3 different examples of strategies that you can build: cost leadership, differentiation, and focus strategy. So cost leadership is essentially becoming the lowest cost producer in the industry. So by streamlining operations, bulk purchasing, cost-effective technology, you could essentially be the cheapest option. So if you're in a lowest bid environment or low quote environment, this is a good strategy to have. You know, how can we be the cheapest option? But you have to make sure all of your strategy and all your practices are going to support that, because it's a pretty common one that everyone's trying to undercut each other in. So if your whole strategy is about being the cheapest, how are you going to substantiate overhead costs? How are you going to hire more staff? Where are you going to strategize and make cuts so that you can take a lower hit or take a lower profit, right? So if that's the leadership, that's the strategy you want to go for. You want all your goals and your day-to-day, your actions, your strengths to all align with, we can make our product or our service the cheapest option. So maintaining quality, cost control, and price competition. Differentiation is a little bit more unique, where you're offering a product or service or offering in a way that stands out from your competitors. So the things that are important here are innovation, high quality customer service, and brand positioning. And this is all about customer perceptions, premium pricing, continuously improving and innovating how you approach your process, and how you can offer something in a truly unique way. So differentiation is a little bit difficult if you don't have a specific niche market or clientele that you can go after. But if you are able to offer something in a unique way, that could be a selling point. You know, we've worked with companies where it was a painting company, and all of the laborers happened to be women. Not on purpose, they just, all the laborers were women. And what this business owner found was that they were getting more work because of that. Not necessarily because they were a certified small business, that's fine, but because of their unique makeup of their business, with something different that's stuck in people's mind. Like, oh yeah, there's this painting company and it's all women. It's just kind of a unique approach. So they were able to use some of that little differentiation to stand out from the competition for a little bit. So different ways that can get really unique, but it's also hard to sell that process, especially in a low bid environment. And focus strategy is really specializing in a particular segment, personalized service, or niche marketing. So it's targeting a specific market or niche with tailored offerings. So figuring out what matters most in a specific market and then dominating that market. This we see happen sometime in the DBE world. If once you figure out how to really operate in that world and you make some good connections with the primes, it's easy to focus on those contracts and win them over and over and over again. It's a little bit more harder to break into that. But again, having a strategy, if that's your strategy, is we want to win more DBE contracts, we want to break into this, form these contacts with primes, then you want to make sure you're doing actions that's going to relate to that. So we formulated the overall strategy. The next part is to actually develop these initiatives. So these are kind of like these overarching blankets that contain several goals underneath them. So an initiative's overview, basically a high-level project or program that supports the strategic goals. So this could be launching a new product line, expanding into a new area, implementing a new technology. So maybe you're expanding your business to start doing erosion control services. That's our strategic initiative. We want to win more DBE projects. We see there's a lot of erosion control. There's not a lot of competition in that. So we're going to expand, buy equipment, get the certifications to do erosion control. That could be an initiative. Then again, prioritize, evaluate, and rank your initiatives based on strategic importance and feasibility. So these are basically the good idea theory, right? This is who comes in and says, oh, wouldn't it be great if we did this and this and this and this? And that's all fantastic. Chart out what that looks like, make sure it aligns with your strategic goal, and prioritize those initiatives. And then inside those initiatives, when you're going to start identifying those goals. And then the action plan. So the goals, the specific tasks, the timelines, the responsible parties, and the resource allocation needed to achieve those initiatives. So we formulated the strategy, we developed the strategic initiatives, and now this is monitoring. So setting up those KPIs and the metrics, so the key performance indicators. So these are quantifiable measures used to evaluate the success of the strategies, and they could be sales growth, market share, customer satisfaction scores, or ROI. So when you set up initiatives, especially if it's something that's a little bit less tangible in terms of the results you get from that, you want to have a way of actually tracking the success of that initiative. You know, if the success is measured by increased sales, okay, great, you're going to track that. But if the success is increased by putting out more bids, you know, that's what we wanted to do, was put out more bids, then you're going to want to be able to track those in some fashion that you can look back and say, this worked or this did not work. And then monitoring the progress. So tools, there's dashboards, reporting systems, performance reviews. These are going to all be very internal to the company. And it depends on, are we talking about a company that has 11 employees? Or are we talking about a company that has one person? You know, how you implement tools, what tools you use, really depends on what you're trying to get out of them. There's a lot of software out there. I talked about estimating and bidding software. They usually are monthly subscriptions. They can be really expensive, but some companies offer them in packages where you can just pick and choose what you want to be able to do. If you're really small, getting started off, I would suggest building an internal tracker and starting to learn what you need to do to capture that data. That's just going to build a better relationship to data for your company with you. And then once you start implementing systems, you'll be able to basically implement them better because you'll know the data you're trying to get because you've already had to manually capture it. One problem we see is when people, they get this estimating and bidding software, they get QuickBooks, they get all of these softwares, they're all going, and they don't even know how to navigate them. They're just very surface level, if that, and you know, it's spitting out all this information at you, but you don't really know what it's telling you, how it's calculating it, if the calculations are even right. So by either hiring someone whose job it is to do that or building these systems yourself, you really start to get a good sense of, okay, these are the metrics that are important. These have a direct correlation to success or failure. So these are what I need to focus on. And now when I implement a new software or program, I really want to make sure that it's focusing on these particular things as well. So the last step here, and this is also really important, that's all important, resource allocation. So you know you have limited resources. as a small business. So we're going to talk about financial, human resources, technology, and then personnel and time. So financial resource allocation is simple enough. We're talking about budgeting, cost management, and financial planning. So it's really just making sure overall that your revenue projections, your expenses, all of that is charted out to align with your strategy. If you want more projects, you're going to have more expenses, but you're going to have more profit. And you want to be able to chart out a fairly accurate rough estimate of what that's going to look like. For cost management, you want to identify savings where possible. So negotiating with vendors or suppliers, bulk purchasing, trying to get multi-contract deals or getting put on a certain contract level where you could get pulled in more often. So just trying to figure out how can we save money. And then financial planning. So having cash flow projections, investment strategy, financing options. Do we need to be bonded? Do we need to have insurance? Do we have a line of credit? How are we going to use our line of credit? What are our SOPs for when we use that line of credit? So really kind of having an understanding of where our financial safety net's at and what do things need to look like for us to use that. Then the HR, the human resources. So your workforce planning, doing our workforce analysis, recruitment plan, succession planning, and talent management. Really figuring out who do we need to make this business successful. So way back at the beginning when I talked about starting at the end, where you define what it looks like. Oh, I have all this extra time to focus on being out in the field because now I don't have to have, spend as much time doing the estimating and bidding. Well, that means you need to hire an estimator and bidder. So being able to, build an org chart for how you want your business to look, figuring out where do you need people, who reports to who's responsible for what, spelling that out, and then being able to achieve it. And employee deployment. So match employees to tasks that leverage their expertise, manage workloads and adjustments as needed. Making sure the right people are in the right roles is important. A lot of times it's hard to find a supervisor or somebody who's at that manager level. And sometimes it's better to grow that from within. So keep that in mind with your laborers or your staff, is that what's the growth potential, not for necessarily just the business, but for my team? Can this be my new supervisor in 6 months or a year? Or do I really need to find somebody else and integrate that? So figuring out how you can get the most out of your personnel resources. Technology is what investments do you need for technology or equipment? Do you need a new piece of equipment? Do you need a new IT software? Do you need to buy a new accounting software? Or, are we not paying for the accounting software anymore because we hired an accountant to do all of our books for us? What does that cost differential look like? So really understanding what are our resources when it comes to technology, IT, equipment, and where do those need to be applied? And do we need more or something different depending on our strategy? And then lastly, physical and time resource allocation. So depending on your company, you may have more than one facility. You may have an office, a maintenance facility, storage area, production facility. It just depends on the everyone's individual companies. But there's a limit to your facility production rate. So you want to know what that is and plan for future expansion needs as necessary. Equipment and supplies, that could be office supplies. It could be materials for projects. Project scheduling and prioritization, those kind of go hand in hand. You're talking about setting your deadlines, your milestones, and then what's the priority in terms of achieving those. Usually it's going to come by deadlines in terms of calendar, which one's coming up first, but it could also be focusing on the high impact activities for the business growth as well. So sometimes the things you're doing for your business growth aren't necessarily bringing in more revenue, which may seem counterintuitive to your business growth, but you don't want to just think in terms of dollar signs, right? You want to think about how do you build potential and capacity for your company to be able to get more dollar signs. So that is our presentation here. You can see our information here, and I'm going to go to the next slide here. We have a QR code here with a link to a survey, and Trisha's going to post a link into the chat here you can click to go to the survey. If you wouldn't mind just taking the 2 minutes to just give us your candid feedback on how we did or what you'd like to see improved. We greatly appreciate that. But other than that, I know we have a few minutes left here. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything related to the topic that they want to bring up or discuss? All right, well, thank you all for showing up today. I really appreciate it. Have a good rest of your day.